Okay, I'm going to do two heaven visits from two different people. This first one is from Dennis. He says he was watching about the rapture. He said he's sending me his story about going to heaven. He says, one day, years ago, I was very distraught and depressed. I don't even remember why now. So I went to bed early and laid there, not able to sleep. Just then, the ceiling of my bedroom melted away, and instantly I found myself waist deep in a very lush lagoon. The water was almost like it wasn't there. It was perfect body temperature. It didn't even feel wet. I looked down and the bottom was about 10 feet below and covered with baseball-sized gemstones that emanated the most beautiful light. I didn't have to tread water. I was perfectly buoyant and I felt an incredible peace. I looked around and it was the most beautiful place I have ever seen. The water glowed blue like a light swimming pool. Then I heard a voice say, "This is yours." Then I was back. It's one of the most cherished experiences. Since then, I have learned that it was from the river of life, which it leads to one that we posted. Chad, it's in the list. Chad's vision also of his heaven visit was similar in the river of life, and they had the tree of life, and there were these glowing butterflies, and just, amazing utopia type stuff. And when you have it, when God intervenes, when you're really down and you feel like you can't get up, you feel like the devil's got his foot on your throat and you just can't get up on your own, and God intervenes and he shows you these things to give you the strength to get up and finish the race. You hold them close in your heart and you rehearse them, and it helps you keep going. So you guys need to get in touch with the Holy Spirit if you haven't already. Most people watching this channel already have, but if you haven't, you need to, because it's a real blessing. This one is from David, and he was worried about his grandmother who had passed, and God showed him, gave him peace of mind. He says, my grandmother on my mom's side is probably the most wonderful woman that I have had the privilege to know in this life. She was a very precious person to me and to God. She went to heaven on December 2nd, 1997. About 10 years before her death, she had suffered a stroke but recovered. I went to see her and sat down and talked with her, and she smiled and nodded her head. So I got up, and she thought I couldn't hear, but she asked my grandfather who I was. My heart just burst into sadness right there, but I held it in until I got back to my house. She suffered several more strokes to the point of where she was totally bedridden and unable to move, and finally she went home to be with the Lord. I believe it was that night after her funeral that I went to bed and asked Jesus to take special care of her. I was so sad and I missed her so much. I was not aware of going to sleep, but suddenly I was standing on a beautiful stone path that was winding ahead of me up a hill. The hill was covered with beautiful flowers and trees and shrubs, and at the top there was a cottage-like building. I walked up the path and noticed that there was no door on the front, and I could see people standing around inside. I went in and found that this was the front room and there was another back room. The people all looked startled to see me, and I could hear them whispering, "What's he doing here? It's not his time yet." They parted, and I walked to the back room where 5 or 6 people were laughing and so happy, chattering to my grandmother, and she was resting in bed. I said, "Grandma." She smiled so big. "David, I'm only in bed to regain my strength. I'll be fine. I want you to go back and tell your mother and sister, Julie, that I'm in no pain, and I cannot wait for you all to be here with me. Also tell your mother that she and your sister came to pray for me, and there was a demon holding me down to the bed and keeping me from talking. David, they should know that they had the power through Jesus to cast that thing off me and heal me, but they didn't. You need to tell them that I am in a place where nothing like that can ever hurt me again, and that I love them so much, and thank them for praying for me." And then he says, I found myself sitting up in bed, and I was so at peace knowing that she was in Jesus' care. So the next morning I went to my mom's house. I really felt like she would think I was crazy if I told her about this demon thing, but I decided to tell her anyway and trust God to work it out. I told her, and she started crying. I felt terrible. I told her I was sorry to have upset her, but she said, no, no, you don't understand. Julie and I went to pray for her, and at one point Julie was standing at the head of her bed and somehow saw this ugly demon creature laying on top of Grandma, and it looked up at her and made a terrible face. Then we left. I asked her why she had not told me about this, but they agreed to keep it between them and tell nobody because people might think they were crazy. If I only would have known, but that was not meant to be. And then he says, before my grandfather died, I was helping him put some shelving together, and God told me to tell him what I had seen, and he cried happy tears and thanked me for letting him know that she was waiting for him. And he went to meet Jesus and my grandmother on March 12th, 2007, and I'm looking forward to seeing them both in the very near future. And he believes the rapture's coming, like many of us do. But yeah, that's again a wonderful, God put your mind at ease. He'll answer your prayers. But also the thing about the demon, a lot of people don't get healed because Jesus said, the faith of a mustard seed will move a mountain. And a lot of people just don't believe in that sort of thing, especially in the church, in the organized religions, in the organized churches. You just don't. If you go in there, I've done it. A lot of people who have faced persecution, I get a lot of emails about that, and I did too. When I first received the baptism of the Holy Spirit alone in my home, I thought everybody would be thrilled. And so I went straight to church. I went to, I said, oh my gosh, Jesus visited me. It was so awesome. And they didn't believe. They didn't believe me. And they didn't believe in healing, and they didn't believe in any of this stuff. They didn't believe, I guess, in the Holy Spirit, which means that going to church and sitting in a church pew, it's not going to save you, folks. You need the Holy Spirit. The Bible's really clear. It says the only unforgivable sin is blaspheming the Holy Spirit. And that doesn't mean to say something bad about the Holy Spirit. That's not what it's saying. It's saying to disbelieve, to not receive the Holy Spirit. So it's not a religion that's going to save you. It is actually being born again from above, actually receiving the Holy Spirit. So there are people who have sat in church for 40 years and they blaspheme the Holy Spirit. They don't believe in the Holy Spirit. So please be very careful of that. It doesn't mean that if you don't practice all the gifts that you're not going to make it, These people that didn't know to pray, they just didn't know. That doesn't mean that they didn't have the Holy Spirit. Apparently they did, because she said that they could have cast that demon off of her. But something to consider. And again, wonderful heaven visits, heaven testimonies. We're all anxious to get there. It's going to be wonderful, and it's going to be nice to see everybody again. Miss them, and I miss the Lord. I miss heaven and home and all of you. So I love you guys. God bless you.